Welcome, and I apologize for that. I'm glad you all stuck with us here. We have a nice time block, so I think we can still get through all of the material this afternoon on the training for the Adult Care Program online orientation. Sounds like you all are hearing me now, which is great. I do have phone number information up on this screen if you wanted to dial in as well. Otherwise, the intent was to try to use the question pane for questions, which was good because when I paused, I could see that all of you were having trouble hearing. So let's continue using that. If you've got problems or any questions as we go through the material, please use that question pane, and in that way we can communicate with each other. I know most of you are taking this from your desktop and don't have a microphone integrated into or with your computer. So good job with that question pane. Let's keep using that. And same thing with the raised hands. I'm going to go ahead and click all of the raised hands down for now, but that's another way if you're having questions or you need help with something, feel free to use that raise hand feature, which is built into the GoToWebinar system. Okay, very good. All right, well, here we go, officially this time. So, and this is a slide I put in just to remind me to record the session. We are recording it so that you will have access to it after this particular session today. So if you need to go back and listen to it again, if you want to watch it, then you will have the ability to do that. I'll be sending the recorded session to the headquarters office. Okay, so today, let me just quickly go over the agenda of what we plan to cover. We're going to do a quick overview of the online orientation and how you would access it. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what the registration and payment process looks like. We're going to talk, and I will actually show you some of the pieces of the online orientation so that you'll have an understanding of what your applicants are seeing when they're taking the orientation. You will also, after this call, have the ability to take the online orientation yourself, which is probably a good idea just to familiarize yourself with it. And you'll be able to take it because you have been entered in as administrators. So you have a very important role in this system as we roll it out. We've been piloting it now for a week. We did this training in 2 other offices, and it's been open to the public for about a week, and we've had a number of people register in the 2 pilot office areas. So your role as an administrator is what we're going to spend some time on today. What does that mean? What types of special powers do you have? Because you do get special powers as an administrator, and that feeds nicely into the next topic we'll be covering in some detail, which are the various reports that you will need. Some of them are for information, some of them are for inputting information. So a variety of different ways that you can use the reports. We're going to talk through those. We'll also spend a little bit of time on the FAQs and system requirements. These are things you just need to be familiar with, that they exist. You don't need to know them exhaustively. And then we'll also, as we wrap it up, spend some time on what are some of the common questions that we know typically have come up. And because we've launched several of these online orientations now through the child care program, we have some good information about what some of those common questions are and how we can resolve them. So my role, and I am Melissa Asher. I realize on the webinar it says Teresa speaking, but it is Melissa who's speaking with you here today. My role is to really work in partnership with the department. I work very closely with the headquarters support team and making sure that any problems or any issues that come up related to the system for your applicants or for you, we are able to address very quickly and as easily as we possibly can. Because the whole reason for going to this model of an online orientation was really designed to give more access to the public that you are serving, your customers, so that they would have 24/7 access to online training via the internet. gives them that convenience factor to be able to take the training at a time that works best for them, even if that time is midnight. They have that ability. We also wanted to provide for a very consistent training message. And I want to tell you, there was a lot of work, a lot of time and effort by program that went into this course. Goes into all of the courses, that program knowledge to really create the script, to create the PowerPoints and the various screens, all of the different documents that we then put together in an online training environment so that there's a very consistent, very technically accurate training message that gets out to everyone. And I think I mentioned this, I probably didn't, but having the 24/7 access means that applicants can also then, once they've registered, watch or take the online training course as many times as they want within a 30-day period of time. So that's important. The 30-day period of time was put into place somewhat as a security measure, also as a way to keep people a little bit more accountable. Once they have registered for the course, it is reasonable to expect that people will be able to complete the course within a 30-day period of time. If someone were to take the course from start to finish, it would not take them, it should take the average person between 1 hour and certainly no more than 2 hours if they were to take it from start to finish, stopping at all of the various links. So asking them to complete it within a 30-day time period seemed very, very reasonable and also keeps people on track with the process and hopefully with the follow-through of submitting their application. So that's kind of why we went down this path, and there were many, many people involved in making this happen. So in terms of access, applicants will find the orientation on the Department of Social Services website. And I've just put up a couple of sample screenshots here. At the time we put this together, I don't think I had the final resting place on the Social Services website, but they will access it from your site, just like they would access in-person training, except there'll be a link for the online training. So that should not be any different of a process other than they'll have another option now when registering for an orientation, and that will be an online option. Now, for you all, administrators, you have a very important role, and the web address for you to bookmark is the one that is on the screen right now, the www.ascp.calsocserv.org. This is the website that you will use to access the system. And you've all been set up as administrators. I'll talk more about that at the end of our time here today. Also, important to know, once an applicant, once a person has registered for the course, this is also the website where they will go to log in. So it's an important website. Let me just show you quickly. We'll pop out for a minute and take a look at what it looks like. It's a very straightforward login type of a website. And we'll talk a little bit more about how they get this particular information. But that's the site that they're going to be directed to, and that's the site you should bookmark because it is how you will be accessing the system. Okay, so let's talk now a little bit more in depth about registration. So as I mentioned, the process will start on the Department of Social Services website. The applicant, the person, they will click on a link that tells them that they are interested in taking, or I guess they're selecting, a link for the online orientation. And that's going to take them to a registration page. And the registration page is broken down into two parts. There's the part for the registration information, which is fairly basic profile information that we need to collect, and that all feeds back into the reporting side of things. And then the second part is payment information, because they do need to pay for this orientation. And the majority of the fees that they pay are remitted back to the Department of Social Services, just like it is in the in-person orientation. The person pays a fee. That fee goes to the Department of Social Services. It's the exact same principle at work here. Important thing, and I promise you I'm not yelling at you in all caps and with red, but it is important for you to know that all of the fields are mandatory in the registration process. If someone leaves a field blank, when they hit the register button, they will get an error message that tells them that they have left a field blank, and that field will be indicated with a red asterisk next to it. So it'll be very obvious to them if at this stage of the process they have not completed all of the registration fields. But I thought I'd mention that to you because invariably sometimes that can be a question that comes in. So let's take a look at what that registration form looks like. Again, this is once they've clicked on that link from the Social Services website that says they want to take the online orientation, they will be directed to this particular screen. This particular screen, if we start at the top, clearly indicates that this is a State of California orientation. We've got the logo for the Department of Social Services, and then we've got some welcome information and some basic directions, which are designed to give them the information that they need to proceed. We've also got a link there for operation requirements that refers to the computer operating system requirements. We don't require anything that's state-of-the-art. It's pretty basic, but we've got that listed there so that people know if they wish to look at that, they can look at that right there and make a decision about whether or not the computer they're taking the orientation on is going to be sufficient to run the orientation. We've also got a link there, a contact support link that's in purple because I was testing that earlier. So that is a link if at this point they feel like they need help, they've got a question, then they can go ahead and click that link, and that question will go to the support folks at headquarters. We've underlined there that they only have access to the orientation for 30 days. That's important for them to know at this stage because the clock starts ticking as soon as they register. And then we've got some basic directions really relating to filling out all of the fields, letting them know that their username and their password will be emailed to them, that it may take up to 24 hours for them to receive that email. If they do not receive that email, that they should contact support. We encourage people not to re-register without first contacting support because if they do that, they may be charged twice. And we want to avoid that. We also caution people in direction number 5 to not click on the back button because sometimes that can result in a duplicate payment. We haven't had a lot of those instances since we updated these directions. We made some changes. I forget the time frame, but not several months ago now, and that has really dramatically helped reduce the number of inadvertent duplicate payments. Okay, so then really they're presented with this box that clearly says this is the Adult Care Component 1 orientation, and then we ask for first name, last name, email address, city, state, zip code, county of license, phone, so basic profile information. And then we ask for the zip code to be licensed in. This is a very important field because the way we have built the system is that depending on what zip code the applicant places in this field, it will assign a regional office. So that is very, very important that people fill that out. Now, we do recognize we have a provision in there for people who may not know the location of their facility at this point. So we've given them an option to enter 5 zeros and to click the unknown box because we recognize that may be the case. They may not know at this stage. We know when they submit their application, they will know that. But at this point in time, if they're just doing some exploratory information gathering, they may not know it. So I wanted to point that out. And we also have job title, and I pulled this out in the box to the right just to show you. It's got a drop-down menu. It says select, and they can select the different types of titles that they may have. And then the last field there is agency name, DBA. Here we're asking for the name that they would be doing business as. Okay, so the bottom half of that screen takes them then to the payment information. And we've got a shortcut box here. If under the blue payment information, there's a little box that says cardholder's name, same as a registrant name. So if it's the same name, the same information for the registration, the person taking the course as paying for the course, they can click that box and all of that information will be filled in for them. But we do find, certainly we have found with the child care program, child care center applications program, that oftentimes it's the agency or the owner of the center who is paying, and the registrant is actually an employee, someone different. So those two portions can be different. We do accept only credit card payments, and we only accept Visa and MasterCard at this time. So that may be a question that comes up if someone is trying to pay with other than a Visa or a MasterCard. I will tell you, when they click that select button under credit card type, Visa and MasterCard are the only two selections there. So it should be fairly obvious to them that those are the two options. And if they've got an American Express or a Discover card, that is not a viable option. But I thought I would just mention that to you. So very straightforward registration process. Again, the two parts, we're looking for really the profile, the applicant information, and then we're looking for the payment information. They've got a register button at the bottom of the screen. Once they click on that register button, the register button does go gray so that they know that it's processing and not to click on that or to move away or to click on the back button. Okay, so let me tell you then, after they have clicked that registration button, what happens through the system is they will get an automatic email confirmation. And this is a sample of what that confirmation will look like. It comes from an address that's called noreply@cpshrsonline.org. It's going to have, the date and the subject will be California Department of Social Services online course registration. It's going to tell them the message is from an automated system, so please do not reply. It thanks them for their registration and then gives them that critical information that they need to proceed: their username, their password, and where they're going to log in, that login URL. And that is an active link, so they should be able to click right on it. Now, let me just mention to you that this was a sample that we pulled from the child care application course because, as you know, as we talked about in the beginning, the URL for this program is www.ascp.calsocserve.org. So let me take a minute here to talk about this email confirmation. And we touched on it when we were looking at the directions for registration. It can take a little bit of time for this email to be delivered to a person's inbox. And there are some cases where a system may think that this message is a spam or a junk mail type of a message. So we do need to be aware that if we get phone calls or people are concerned and they call because they have not received their username and their password, that they should check their junk folder or their, I think it's usually called a junk folder or a spam folder, because that is a possibility. And they also need to give it a little bit of time. Now, if they've given it 24 hours and they've checked that area and they don't see it, then by all means that is a support call issue that we can help them with. But I just wanted to mention that. So giving it a little bit of time and checking those two possible alternative areas where it sometimes can be delivered to usually takes care of that situation. And we do monitor this fairly regularly. We are always looking at the program, I say we, but really it's the programmers are always looking at the various spam filters and the junk filters, because there's some things that we can do, again, we being the programmers, can do on their end to minimize the chance that this message is recognized as junk mail, because we don't want it to end up in that particular folder. I see there was a question about, is a Visa, MasterCard, debit card accepted? Yes, and the answer to that is yes. Yes, so the debit cards do work for payment. That's a very good question, and thank you for using that question, Payne. Okay, so we've talked through how they go to the social services website, they click on the link, they go to the registration page, they complete that information, they receive the email confirmation, and then they can go to this particular screen, this login screen. And we looked at it a little bit earlier. It's very basic, mirrors exactly the information that they've just received in their email, their username, and their password. It does have a couple of extra utilities like forgot your password. So if they know their username, they would be able to retrieve their password. And it also has a help feature here as well. So if they need help at this stage of the game for whatever reason, there is a way for them to reach out and contact the support desk and the support team. Okay, I'm going to pause there and see if there are any other questions at this point. And once again, to make sure that everybody is hearing me and this information is coming across clearly. Any questions at this stage here? Anything else? Are we doing okay? Why don't we do this, just so that I know that we're proceeding along well? If you can give me a hand raise so that I know that everything is okay out there. You're hearing me. The information is making sense. Okay, great. Thank you, Erin. Yes, others out there. Okay, Brittany, thank you. Geraldine, Julia, wonderful. Mary, okay, great. Okay, good. Okay, good. We have one person. Okay. Good. Okay, great. All right, then let's keep going, because this next part I love to talk about. I love to tell you a little bit about the elements that we used when creating the online orientation. And again, let me say this was done in partnership with Program, who put in a ton of time and effort on the script and on the PowerPoint so that all of the correct information was conveyed. And through that, we ended up with many different elements in the course. And basically, the importance of having the different elements is to really drive engagement, because it was very important to us that not only were we conveying a lot of information, and as you know, it is a lot of information, but that we were doing so in a way that was engaging and interesting to your customers, to those folks, those applicants who were listening in, who were watching it, who were considering applying. So the elements that we used were video. We used PowerPoint with VoiceOver. There are many, many links, many screens where we have embedded links that go out to different forums or different resources, different websites. We have quizzes that are built into each module, and we also have a certificate at the end. So just a good, what would I say, a different mix of different elements that are designed to make it more interesting and for people to retain more of what they're seeing. So a couple of important tips that I want to run you through before we take a look at a couple of the screens here is we're also very cognizant of wanting people to watch the entire orientation. So we built it so that they could not skip ahead. They must progress through the course sequentially, meaning they have to do the module 1 before they can go to module 2, before they can go to module 3. Now, once they have completed a module, they can go backwards and watch a module again, but we've built it so they cannot skip ahead. They also must complete the entire course to get their certificate. That is very important. We'll talk a little bit more about how that ties in then to the applications received process for you all out there in the field. Also, we mentioned this already, but once it's completed, they have up to 30 days to watch it as many times as they would like. They can go back and forth for any of the modules they've completed for up to 30 days. And another important thing to know, because the word quiz can sometimes be scary to people, is that the quizzes are really informational. They were built as learning tools. So even if you get a question incorrect, you are still able to advance in the course. And if you do get a question incorrect, the program will give you the correct answer, because the intent in the quizzes is just to keep the person on track with the information, to kind of a self-check for them, are they absorbing the important information. So there's just a couple of little tips for you to be aware of. Okay, so remember that screen where they've got their username and their password, they've typed that in. Once they have typed that in, this is the screen that they will be presented with. And we've got some basic information here again at the top so that they know that they're taking the adult care facilities application orientation. To complete their orientation, there's a series of directions. We've given them a link to the mailing addresses for the regional offices. Actually, we've updated that link, so I know that link there is the child care one, but we have updated the one for your regional offices. And we've also given them a link to additional resources, which does include, by the way, a PDF with all of the screenshots, with all of the PowerPoint slides. So if someone wanted to print that out because maybe they're taking notes as they're watching it, as they're going through the modules, they can do that, in addition to just a ton of additional resources, including forms and websites that they will find useful and helpful as they're deciding to go forward with this application and apply for the program. So then they've got the various different requirements, the videos, 1 through 7. And you'll see that first one is highlighted in yellow. That indicates to them where they will begin just by clicking on that link. Once they've completed video 1, they'll get a green check mark, and we'll see this a little bit later. And the yellow highlighting will move to video 2. So if they complete a video, a module, and decide they've got to take care of something else, so they close out, they log out. When they log back in, that yellow highlighting will tell them where they need to pick up and continue. I will tell you, if they stop in the middle of a module, it does not count for a completion. So that's important. Once they start a module, they need to watch that module from start to finish through the quiz to be able to get the green check mark to have completed a module. All right, so this is what one of the screens looks like, and this is where I talked about we've integrated video with PowerPoint and VoiceOver. So we've got Kristen is the young lady there, and so she is the one who is narrating. It is her voice throughout the program, throughout the online orientation, and then we've got lots of different information that is presented in various different ways. This happens to be the first slide. This slide is a good illustration of now we're using the whole slide for information, and we've got a link. So at this point, they may be, if they're interested, they can be directed out to that Adult and Senior Care Licensing Regional Office link, which will pull up that information for them. When there is a link placed on the screen, we have generally a continue button. We wanted people to take the time to go out to look at those links, but then have a very easy, clear way to continue on with the orientation. So that's why we've got the continue button there. Do you want to talk?
Melissa, can I chime in?
Oh, please, yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to also mention that there's an actual screen between the video screen and the login screen where they have to click the adult programs button to get to that page. I
I'm not
think
sure what you mean.
you left that out. The courses page.
Back on this first page here?
One more.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If under the training courses, they would have to click on where it says component 1, where it says application orientation, because if they choose to take both application orientation and
yes,
component 3,
I know what you mean. Yes, okay. Excellent. Let me show you in real time since we are able to log in. Let me show you, I think, that the piece that Ken is talking about. So, and because I have my site is set up. So if I log in, and that's a good point, Ken, that's a really good point, because as more courses get added, then there'll be, someone could conceivably have 2 or more courses that they might choose. So are you seeing this, Ken, on your screen?
Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. You have to go here before you can get to the other page.
Yes, excellent. So so once you log in, you'll be taken to this training courses page, and they can click on this course to take them to, and I've completed mine here, but then they can start in with the videos. And again, a good point on that, because if a person is taking several courses, and we see this in the Child Care Centers Applications course, where many people take both the applications course and the operations and record keeping course. And I understand that that's somewhat similar to the way that your programs work. Good. Thank you, Ken. Good clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, good. And yeah, so that really is then how they will get into it, and then they'll pick up once they start going through the training. They'll have the various different screens that we've looked at so far. Navigation, I've given you across the top here just a little slice of that screen that drives the navigation. And this is fairly scaled down because, as I said earlier, we don't want them to be skipping forward. So they've only got a couple of options. They can play the orientation, this little triangle, white little triangle looking box. They can pause it. So if they need to step away for any reason, they can pause the program. They can rewind. It's the double triangle pointing to the left. So they can go backwards if they want to. Maybe they missed something or they didn't understand it. They want to go back. They can certainly go back. And then we've got the closed caption option too. That's on the far right hand of the screen. It's the box with CC. And then at the bottom of this particular slide, I've illustrated if they click on that CC box, then basically everything that Kristen, the presenter, is saying is written out underneath so that they could follow along and actually be reading that as she's speaking it. So of course we do that to try to help for any sort of 508 compliance and any ADA considerations. So navigation is pretty easy, and it's also very similar to what they are used to out in the rest of the world, where you've got these similar types of play and pause and rewind types of buttons and symbols on other types of electronic devices. Okay, let's take a look at the quiz piece just so you can see what I was talking about. The quizzes are generally multiple choice. There's a short question or statement, and then they can choose one of the various options. I've shown you on the right-hand side here if it's correct. Look at a box that says that's right. It's green. Repeats the correct answer. If it is incorrect, the box will be more orangish, and it will tell them which is the correct answer. Now, I copied and pasted in here, so these correct and incorrect boxes don't correspond directly with this particular question, but I wanted you to be able to see what type of feedback they got on the quizzes, just in case you get questions on that. We haven't gotten a lot of questions, to my knowledge, on the quizzes. I think people see them as an educational tool, and they're not, because they can keep continuing going through it. People don't, it doesn't tend to throw people. So I think it's been a very positive part of the program. And then once they've completed the quiz, they'll get a results screen, which just tells them how many they've gotten correct out of the questions. And then they're allowed to finish out that particular module and move on to their next module. And when they do that, and I kind of already showed you this when we peeked at my account a little bit, they get a nice, beautiful green check mark after each of the modules that they have completed. And once they have completed all of the modules, once they have all of those green check marks, then they get that nice certificate of completion. And that's a very important document. It's a document that they need to submit with their application. And on that certificate, and they get to it by clicking on that picture. There's that picture of that certificate there. That's how they can print it. Once they click on that, it comes up in a PDF format. We did that for a couple of reasons. It's a fairly ubiquitous type of a format. Everybody typically has or can get Adobe Reader so that they can print that out. Adobe Reader is a free tool, and they can print this then to any type of a printer that they might have. A couple of things to point out about this certificate, because we built in a couple of kind of security features here. The name, when it says under here, this certifies that, and this says Melissa Asher, that name matches the registration ID at the bottom. And this was test data, so my registration ID was 6'9". But that's really kind of a behind-the-scenes quality control feature, because when anyone registers, they are assigned a unique registration ID number that is tied to the name that they registered with. So if I were to say to Ken, hey Ken, I took this orientation, I think you should take it too, but just use my login information, here it is. Ken could log on, he could use my credentials, he could watch the orientation, but the certificate at the end is going to say Melissa Asher, and it's going to have my registration ID number. So if Ken wants to follow through with the whole application process, he's not going to be able to without actually going in through the registration process and completing the course with his own login and his own account. So that's important to know. And it also, of course, tells them which course they have successfully completed. Does that make sense to everyone out there? Good. Makes sense. No questions at this point? I'm not seeing any in the question pane. Let me just check real quick. Okay, I think we're doing okay. All right. So the certificate, a very important document. And again, they have access to this for that 30-day period of time. They need to take it. They can save this document if they wanted to, since it comes up as a PDF. They could save their certificate to their computer, and in fact, that's probably advisable. That's just something for you to know. So it is a PDF document. It's locked down, and the name and the registration ID are tied together at the system level. Oh, I think there is a question. How do we know which Jane Smith is which? Well, one of the identifying features will be the registration ID, and we'll take a look at this specifically when we look at the applications received? That's a very good question. Hold on to that, because using that registration ID number is really how you'll be able to tell who is who in the system. Good question. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got next. Oh yeah, let's take a look and talk a little bit about your administrator roles. As you know, you submitted, the office submitted a list of administrators, and we have dutifully entered all of you into the system as administrators, which means you have special powers, and all of you have been entered in as either a level 2 administrator or a level 3 administrator. This particular chart that you're seeing on the screen right now talks about all of the different levels that we have, because in addition to level 2 and level 3, we also have a system admin, and we have an administrator, admin 1, admin 2 level. And those particular levels have increasing responsibility within the system and have more superpowers, for lack of a better term. That very first administrator, admin 1, really is for programmers, because you can see there's a checkbox in the edit content box. We only want programmers to be editing content. So that's something that we reserve for them. There's a lot to that, so it's an important role that we keep restricted. And then for CDSS admins, it's really like an admin 1 at the CDSS level. They have some additional responsibilities and some additional functionalities in terms of adding and editing FAQs, and they can set up admin accounts and remove admin accounts. Now, all of you out there, there are several of you, usually 1, sometimes 2 admins at that level 2, usually at least 1 in each regional office. And the admin 2s, you are the folks who can add other administrators. And this is an important role. It's an important function in the system. If you have new staff, certainly this is where this comes into play and where this can be very important. If you have new staff, of course, you're going to need to be able to add them into the system. The admin level 3, you folks have the ability to view courses. You're going to have a lot of ability around viewing and exporting reports, and certainly this functionality for recording applications received data. That's where you will primarily spend your time. All users have the ability to view the course and view and export reports. We'll talk about how some of the reports are useful to you and have been designed specifically for you. Some of the reports have been designed for different functions and you won't be using them very much. And then everyone has the ability to add that information in for the applications received, which is a very important function. So you all are empowered. It's good to be an administrator. It gives you the ability to basically do what you need to do in the system. Ken, do you want to add anything there? Did I forget anything?
No.
Okay.
You pretty much got everything. The one thing I would say is in the admin 2s, for the most part in the regional offices, are either licensing program managers or office support supervisors, and their primary role in this system, right, is to add and delete users in that office as far as admin accounts goes, and that they could be used potentially to look up people who call up and ask for their username and password, but you can also just send those up to the help desk. But only once again, the admin 2s have that functionality.
Okay, great. And so I'm just gonna touch on that to piggyback on what Ken has said. Oops, did I go too far? Let me see here. Yes, as an administrator, the way to get into this particular functionality is through an admin menu, which is highlighted here kind of in orange, down to user account manager and across to users. And you all have access to this admin menu. Some of you will not have access to the adding of the users, but we've included it here because we know there are several, at least one in each office, who has the level 2 responsibility. So once those level 2s have looked into admin, user account manager, and users, there is a button called Add New Users. And it's very simple. Again, who will do it? As Ken said, administrators at level 1 and level 2, they will click on that button to add a new user, typically when there is new staff. And it's a very simple process, certain fields that are asked for. Again, very basic profile information to be able to add you into the system. This is also an important spot, and Ken alluded to this, because sometimes you might need to be finding users in the system. So to find a user in the system, you're going to follow the same type of process. You're going to check the user account manager, and you're going to go to the admin, user account, users, and you're going to search by username. So if we were to take a look at that here, and I'm going to actually pop out and show you in real time, because I've logged in here. So just as we were talking about, you go to the admin account, and keep in mind this admin menu here is not visible to the applicants, the people from the public who are taking the course. That admin menu doesn't even show up for them. It only shows up for us, those of us here who have been designated as administrators. So I would go to the admin menu. I would choose user account manager. I would choose user. And I'm going to be presented with this particular screen, and I've got a couple of, really 3 different areas, but only one that is probably going to be the most helpful to search for a new user. And usernames are system assigned, first name and last name. Now some of these look a little different because we've been doing some testing in the system, but the standard convention that has been programmed into the system, like we did here with Michelle Wong, is first name, last name, no space. So if you've got someone, and I'll use my last name as an example here because I've been testing in the system a lot. Let's say you've got someone who says, my name is Melissa Asher, then I would type in here username Asher, and I'm going to use my filtering tool here. I clicked on this little filter looking like thing, and I'm going to choose contains, and it's going to pull up all of the various options that I have for anyone with a username that contains Asher. And that is usually a very quick and easy way to find people in the system if you need to then give them the username and password. So let's go ahead and take a look at, Clementine Asher. Let's see. So now I can see Clementine's username, and I can see Clementine's password. Passwords are automatically assigned by the system, and they're automatically designed to be hard to remember. We're not trying to make it difficult for them, but again, it's kind of a security feature where they need to be using the password that's been assigned to them, and it's going to be a combination of letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase. The password and the username are both case sensitive. So we had a question earlier, someone who said, well, how do we know which Jane Smith it is? So if we had 2 Clementine Ashers in the system, one of them would say Clementine Asher with a number 1, because you have to have a unique username in the system. Now, there very well may be multiple Clementine Ashers, but the first Clementine Asher that registers, their username will be Clementine Asher. The second one, the system will automatically assign a Clementine Asher with the number 1 will become their username. From here, you can also view profile information. So again, getting back to that question on how can I tell if this is the right Clementine Asher? Well, I can drill down and look at their profile information to see their address, their phone number. I can ask them to verify that type of information. And here is that all-important at the bottom, that all-important registration ID. So if the person can tell me what the number is on their certificate, I can absolutely verify that it is them. Okay, so that's a little bit on the functionality of how we would find a user, and it was kind of a good place to cover there in terms of if you're adding a user, you would add it here, and searching for users, you would use the username filter box to search. So we've already kind of gone there, so let's go whole hog into the reports. There are a number of different reports in the system. Some of them have been specifically designed for you, and some of them have been designed for other folks in the system. And by others, sometimes that's going to be programmers, sometimes that's going to be myself here and my staff at CPS, or it might be headquarters staff who are looking at different data sets. And to get to the reports, we're back to that fun admin menu. Everything is really driven from that admin menu. So on the screen you can see, again, highlighted somewhat in orange there, the admin menu. We go down to reports, and when you click on reports, it opens up a whole list of different reports that you may choose from. So some of the common reports that you will be using will be these four, and really probably 3 of these with more frequency. The first one is completions by month. Then we've got an all fields report. We've got a registrations by month report and a participant verification report. So those are really the main reports that you'll be working with, in addition to one other area that we'll be talking about, which is the applications received functionality. So let's take a look at each one of these. So for completions by month, the purpose of this report is really so that you can see who has completed the course. And this screenshot was when I took and completed the course in the testing phase. It gives the username, Masher, when I started the course, when I completed the course, my time to completion. Now, it's over 5 hours, but keep in mind I started it, got pulled away, and came back. So the time to completion is entire time. So you may see some interesting numbers in there sometimes if someone has started it one day and then not gotten back to it until another day. Those times can sometimes be quite long because the system is looking at total time from start to finish, even if there's been some start and stop in the middle. Registration ID should normally be filled in here. Again, this was some testing data. We've got the regional office and last name. Important thing to note here about this completions by month is if you are looking for patterns or trends, you can actually run this report for a specific date range. And that's why we've got the start and the end date and the little calendar icon. So if you're looking for completions within a certain time period, you have the ability to look at 1 month or maybe multiple months, or if you want to pull in a whole year. If we're 12 months down the road and you want to see completions for a whole year, then you would be able to do that. And we also have the ability to export. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what you might do with an export. But it's important to know that you have the ability to export this particular report. We have a lot of the offices that are interested in just their data for their regional office. So the completions that come in here are for the entire system. So everybody who's completed, no matter what regional office, is going to appear on this completions report. And by using some filtering and sorting tools, which we'll talk about in Excel, after you've exported this file, you can really pull out the data perhaps that you just are interested in for your regional office. Okay, the next report, and this one we'll spend not a lot of time on. This is the all fields report, and the function for this is really a catch-all data dump type of report. So if we are looking for a needle in a haystack for some reason, we needed a report where we could see all of the various information. So that's what the all fields report is really for. We find in practice that out in the regional offices, you very rarely, if ever, need to pull this report. This report is generally used when we're doing some level of troubleshooting on an applicant who, for whatever reason, we're having a difficult time locating in the system. This is when myself and working with the support team, we will sometimes use this report. But I'll tell you, we don't even really use this report all that frequently. But I wanted you to know it was there because, again, it's kind of one of those fail-safe reports where, okay, I can get to my data, I can pull it out in Excel, I can use some of the basic Excel functions like filtering and sorting and finding, using the find feature to find data if I need to. Let me show you. And this, because this report gets so large, when we tap into or when we try to pull this report, you have to specify a date range. You have to give a start and an end date, and then you would click on this Generate Report button. And so it's only an exportable report. It is not shown on the screen because it's got so many fields and so much data, even if you were to choose to run it for a short period of time because of the number of columns that are included, it's simply too large to display on the screen. But again, don't concern yourself too much with this report. It's probably a fairly rare occurrence when you would need it. More interesting for all of you, and we find that this is a report that is used, certainly we use it here, and I know headquarters does as well, is registrations by month. So the function of this report and why you would use this report is to verify a successful registration. There are occasions, because we live in the land of technology, where someone may pay for the course, so they may go through the registration process, and for some glitch of the system, they don't get their username and their account information. You know, we talked about how a lot of times it can go into a junk box or a spam filter, but sometimes it doesn't arrive. And this is how you can go in and verify that indeed they did register for the course. So we've got username information, we've got last name, first name, when they were created. So when did they register? So if they can tell us, you know, kind of a date range for when they registered, we can often find them here. County of license, license zip code, agency name, agency DBA, regional office, and that registration ID number. Again, if they've got that number, that is a very helpful number because it is 100% unique to that person for that individual registration. So person might have different registration IDs if they're taking different courses. But for every registration for each course, they're going to get a registration ID. It's kind of a record of that payment. It's a one-for-one relationship. And you can see we've got a course ID column here. I pulled this data from the system where we've got multiple different courses that are in production, that are out where people are taking them. So as your system grows and as more courses get added in for your program, that's how we'll be able to identify the various courses that people are taking. So this is a very handy report. And you can see we've got date ranges again because sometimes an office might want to pull this data to see their specific information. So they can pull it by date range and they can export it. And then when they export it, they can slice it and dice it and look at that data in different ways if they would like. So this is a report that you'll probably have occasion to use. Ken, did you want to add anything here? I think we've got a question too. Let's see. When will online orientation be made available to the public? That is a Ken question, but we've been piloting it for a week, and I believe it's going to be within another week or two. But hold on to that question. That's an important one, and we'll see if Ken can give us a definitive date on that. It looks like he may have stepped away. Is everybody still hearing me fine out there?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Ken, the question was, when are we going live with all of the different offices?
I believe it's July 2nd.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay, good. So there's a little bit of time, and we do like to run, as I mentioned, the pilot has been going in 2 offices for about a week. We like to launch these courses where we do a pilot in a couple of offices so that we can get some direct feedback from the public, from the applicants. If there's any sort of difficulty that we've not anticipated, then we can handle it much more easily with a smaller population before we roll it out to everyone. But it's been a very smooth week thus far, so things are tracking very, very well. So, okay, great. So probably end of June, beginning of July, and I'm sure there'll be some sort of an official communication out to the field to make sure that everybody's prepared for that go live date. Okay, let's take a look now at the next report, which is the participant verification report. And this is another report that gets used with great frequency along with the registrations by month report. This report verifies that a participant is doing something in the system, that they have basically registered for the course and they've either started the course, and it also shows that they've completed the course. Basically confirms that they are actively using the system. And this report differs a little bit from the registrations by month report, because the registration report is when they have registered. So when somebody gets an account, when they create an account in the system, they are registered. Now, once they have registered, they might come back and take the course, more than one time, right, within their 30-day period. Also, if they're taking additional courses in the system, this might be an easier way to find them on the participant verification report, because they've registered, let's say, for the applications course, and they come back later down the road for the component 3, the operations. We call it operations and record keeping in child care. I'm not sure if you all have a different name for that, but that additional component that they might need to take, then this is often an easier way to find them. And on this particular report, you have quite a bit of latitude in the way that you can search using the username, the first name, the last name, all of those fields across the top there where you've got that picture of that little filter are ways that you can find information in the system. So let's take a quick peek at that. Participant verification report under the admin, reports, participant verification report. And if we don't know the username, but we know that their first name is, let's see, I wonder if I'm in here with my first name only. No, okay, so let's try, Clementine. Contains. Clementine is in the system. So we can see that by searching by these different fields that you can find. Basically, the point here is to find someone in the system and to verify that they've registered. Maybe we want to see some quick information about the regional office or verify a registration ID number. This is a good place to do that. Now and I haven't started. Clementine registered, but Clementine did not start the particular course. And to clear the filters, after you've used them, you can choose no filter, and it will take you back to the full data. I should also mention on these types of reports where you've got these column headings, you can also click on that column heading and it will sort alphabetically. So this is how you might find yourself in the system. You know, that might be a good test because we've added you all into the system as administrators. We did just put you all in as Sacramento local unit, even though I know you're out there in various different regional offices, but that was to help us identify administrators in the system. So you might just do that to practice. You know, take a look at yourself in the system, search for yourself, and that's a good way to play with this report a little bit. Okay. Ken, anything to add on any of those reports before we talk briefly about some of these other reports? No? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no for now. Let me check the questions box to see if we have some other questions. Okay, we had that question. If an individual has paid in the local office for an upcoming orientation, how could they participate in the online once it's launched without paying a second time? That is a good question, and I believe when we made the transition on the child care courses that there was an actual policy around that. And Ken, is that something you want to speak to? If Ken has stepped away, we'll make sure to come back to that question because that question came up, and I believe that there was an official policy on how to deal with that because there were some people who wished to change over to the online course. So there were some provisions.
Melissa,
oh, yes.
I'm here.
Great.
I have myself double muted.
No, I'm sorry. We have these question about, I know this came up with child care. If someone had paid for an in-person and now wanted to convert to an online orientation.
Yeah, the program office is still working on how we are going to do that, and if we are going to allow people to change it, because the problem is in order for that to happen, we would have to issue them a refund for their in-person orientation, and then they would have to register again for the online version. So we're still kind of researching how to go about that refund process, but there will be a email or some sort of message going out about that once the process has been established.
Some further direction. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, good. Well, another question that came in, different topic here, is if someone completed the orientation and printed their certificate but then lost their certificate, how can they get a replacement? Within that 30-day window, they can go back in and just reprint a copy without any difficulty. If they're outside of that 30-day window, they will have to contact support. We do have the ability to reactivate someone's account for a brief period of time if they needed to reprint that. We also have the ability to retrieve, at the support level, retrieve their certificate for them if we verified the person and the reg ID and all of that information, and then we could send that out. So that is something, if they're beyond that 30-day window, that they should be talking with the support desk about, because
Melissa,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I just want to jump in here also. If everyone looks in their procedures manual, there are instructions on what to do in case of a lost certificate. And basically, if somebody lost their certificate and it's past their 30 days, they can contact the support desk, or you as an administrator can give them their name, user ID, registration ID, and completion date. And they can write a letter stating, I lost my certificate. I took the online orientation and lost my certificate. Here's my name, username, registration ID, and then that should be accepted in lieu of the certificate with the application. And with that information, you can go into the learning management system here online and verify the name with the registration ID.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and that's a nice tee-up for where we're headed, because we're going to go into that application receive manager next. First, I just wanted to point out that as you saw on that admin and the report screen, there are a number of other reports that are available. They're reports that have been designed for other functions and other uses within the system. So you may see a resource and referral report, which is something that is specific to a different online orientation. You'll see requirements completed and video chunks watched, which are two reports that our programming staff use sometimes when we're troubleshooting with an individual who may be having difficulty completing the course. We often go in and take a look at those two reports to try to figure out where the difficulty is for that person, or if there's more of a system issue going on. And then the purchase tracking report is a report that we use extensively here at CPS in coordination with the Department of Social Services to do the reconciliation at the end of the month to make sure that all of the purchases that have come in to the system match up with all of the users who have been added to the system, and we create a report at the end of the month which summarizes those. So that's the purchase tracking report is another good report. It's very similar to the registrations by month report. It's a report that that you can look at and you can filter and sort people by, but it's really just a different slice of the same information that's in the registrations by month and participant verification report. So it's a report that you shouldn't have need of, but it's out there if you're curious. The area where you will spend more of your time, and which really speaks to what Ken was talking about here, is this application received manager. This is an important area in the system, and this is where you will be inputting information into the system based on the applications that you are receiving. So the function here is basically to add application data. It gives you the ability to look for people in the system and then to add in, check off that their application was received, that their reg ID and their name match, and that their application has been submitted, and the date that it has been submitted. So that's what it's called, the application received manager. And when you're adding this data, you'll have certain options: edit, new, and delete. It's very rare that you would need the delete button. So that one is probably one that you won't use, because typically in the system we very rarely actually delete information. Most of the time you will be using the new button or the edit button. And then I've got a little screenshot there of the data that you would be entering on the applications received editor. So you can search for a particular person. You can verify the registration ID, and then the boxes at the bottom where you can check are the application received box and the application received date box after you have verified the name and the registration ID. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between edit and new, and maybe we should go out to take a look at that. So the edit, we added the edit feature because for your program and also for the Child Care Centers program, they may be submitting multiple applications depending on if they're opening multiple different centers. So that's why we added that particular functionality. So under admin, applications received, we can go in and we can take a look here. Let's take a look at this one for this top one, this Ali Asher one. So if I have been mailed in an application, let's see here, and it is for Ali Asher, I might search by last name or first name, but most likely I'm going to be searching by registration ID because it is by far the fastest way to find someone in the system. So let's try, there should be some folks in here because I added a bunch of us in, yeah, with just 99999. And this is a good indicator that this is either test data or system added administrator type of data. So it's really just that easy. When you get, let's go back, let me show you that again. When you get your application in from the applicant, they will have that certificate. That certificate in the lower right-hand corner will have their registration ID. So by simply typing in that registration ID, just as it appears, and clicking on the Search Registration ID button, it should pull up your applicant. And remember, it's a unique number. It's a one-for-one. So this is a great place if there's any sort of problem between the registration ID and the name. If those don't match, if the information pulls up something unexpected here with the name, then you know that there's a problem here. We haven't had a problem with fraud, but it's one of those things that we spent a lot of time thinking about and building some safeguards into the system as we went along to try to prevent. And this is where at that application receive stage is where if someone were to, let's say, edit the PDF file and edit that certificate because they had, they knew how to do that in the Adobe Writer version. I'm not sure you can do that, but just hypothetically, then that would reveal itself at this stage because this data would not match what was in that application. So once you have pulled up the person using their registration ID, you can verify the name, the registration ID, some of this basic information that pulls in from that registration data they input. And here's where you would check the apps received box. Yep, application is received. And you would put in the date received. And you would click on Save. And that's really all there is to it. So now if we go back in and we take a look at that particular record for that registration ID, we can see that it saved the checkbox and it saved the date that I put in. So this is probably one of the areas that you will use the most in the system, and it's supposed to be fairly quick and fairly easy, driven from primarily that registration ID. Okay, let's see. I see there's a couple of questions here. Let's make sure we're getting these.
Melissa, I want to jump in right now.
Yes, please.
I just want to point out also that when you use the search registration ID box at the top, you only want to do that for the first time you get an application from a user.
Oh, that's right.
Other than that, you should go down to the bottom and then click on the new. So the search registration ID box at the beginning, if you use that box as Melissa did and typed in the 6 nines and you see something comes up that it's already filled out, then you should just back out of that and then do a search by user ID or last name and then scroll to the right to hit new so that you don't mess up the initial record.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. That's absolutely right. Because they might be submitting multiple applications. So here's this particular record that we just worked on. Masher, Asher, Melissa, second one from the bottom. And, here's the receive date. And if I scroll all the way over, if I see that edit is an active link, now I can go in and add it again. Does that make sense? So new is for the first time. For the first time first application, you're going to use the New button. And then for
the second application.
No, I'm sorry. Do I have that backwards, Ken?
Yes. Yes, you're going to use the search registration ID on top for the first one, and then if you can edit one, then you want to use the New.
That's
because
right.
we want to have we want to have a record for each application received, so that we can get that all important data of how many different applications we may be receiving from one corporation or one person.
Okay, that makes sense. So the edit. Oh, go ahead.
I just also want to point out, I realize we are 20 minutes over right now, folks, so we are recording this session. So if you do have to go, go ahead and do so, and you can just kind of scroll to the end and watch the end after we have put it out there.
And we're getting pretty close. We probably have about 10 more minutes, I would say, and then we can wrap up. Okay, so just to piggyback on what Ken was saying, so when you first search for the ID, and then the edit button would be simply if you need to edit the information for any reason, which is probably pretty rare. And then when subsequent applications come in, you will click on the new button to add those in. So that pretty much goes over that particular functionality. Now, I wanted to show you all, and we won't spend too much time on this, but I wanted to show you a little bit of information about using Excel. And probably many of you are familiar with this, but Excel is a powerful tool to manage your data, and because many of the reports allow you to export the data, I wanted to just touch on how you then might manipulate, basically using filter and sort, the data in Excel, and this is in Microsoft Excel. So let's take a moment, and I've got Excel open. Let me go ahead and export, and I'm going to export from the Child Care Center course just because we have more data in there right now. So I'm just going to, let me log in here. You'll see this is very similar, and then I'm going to go to Admin, Reports. I'm going to do registrations by month, and I'm just going to export this to a CSV file. CSV will open up in Excel. That's a comma-separated variable that will open up in Excel, and then you can manipulate it as you need to. So you can see it just comes in really as text in the different columns. This is first name, last name, create date, all the various columns that we have on that particular report. And this is quite a bit of data already here just for the month of June. So to get into how you can then manipulate this data in Excel, and most commonly it's around the regional office information, you would go to Data, and then you can go to your Sort and your Filter button. Let's use Filter first. When you click on that Filter button, you see it gives each of the headers a little drop down, a little arrow, which really becomes a little drop down button, and you can then pull data out by a specific office. So it's got all of the offices checked right now because that's what's displaying. If we uncheck Select All, and let's say we just want to see information for Chico and the Bay Area, maybe, we click on OK. Now my data has been filtered so that I can just look at the pieces of information that I am specifically interested in. So this can be a very powerful tool. Now, if we want that filter to go away, we click again on that little filter button. We click on Select All. I click on OK, and all of my data comes back. And that's an important, nice and easy way to filter data. Another tool that you might use might be sorting. So when you click on that Sort tool at the top here, now, and you'll notice here that my data has headers, has a check mark in it. That's important. That has to be checked so that Excel knows that you've named. These columns have discrete names and certain types of information in them. So then you can click on this, sort by, and let's sort by, let's do regional office again. So I want to sort it by regional office. Now I can see that data in a way that's easier for me to see, where is all the volume coming from. And you can do that even with your filter on. If you want to take your filter off, you just click on the filter and it goes off. Sorting, you do need to make sure you've got your data selected to use the sorting. And again, I'll remind you to make sure that you've got this box checked for My Data Has Headers. And then you can sort by all kinds of things. A lot of times I will sort this data by last name because I'm looking for someone in particular, and this can be an easy way to find them. Especially sometimes people, if you're taking a phone message and you're not exactly sure how to spell their last name, sometimes that can be a nice way to sort through the data. So again, we've got the filter tool where you can really segment the data and only take a look at a little segment that is important to you, or you can use that sorting tool. So, and many of you may use Excel, those functionalities in Excel for other work that you may do. But we wanted to spend a minute on that because so many of the reports can be exported out and used in that way. So we're getting close to wrapping up here. A couple of the things I wanted to mention around FAQs and system requirements is that we have built into that help screen, and there's a picture of it on the right-hand side there. If you click on help, they have several different options. They could get to technical questions, and those are questions that are going to be about, why I haven't received my username and my password. I can't progress to the next module. So those technical questions really are questions around the course, not the content of the course, but how I might access the course, and any questions that I might have around how the course itself works. And there is centralized administration of those questions. We can add to them, we can edit them, and I guess that's mostly what we do, is we add to them or we edit them. They're pretty basic. I think there are 10 questions up there now, and we haven't had a need to add any new ones, but we have the ability to do that at any time. The second one are course questions, and those are questions that you, the program folks, gave to us to load in to the system, and those are all around technical course information. So information about the program, questions, common questions that came out of all of those in-person orientations that you've done. A lot of those common questions were captured and then added into the system here. So there are a large number of course questions already loaded and populated in the system. And then the contact support option, that gives them the ability, if they click on that, to send a direct email to the main support team. And that is up here at headquarters. So it's an email box where they can put in their name, they can type in their question, and that goes right into the support box. And we strive for a 24-hour response to any of the support calls that come in. Of course, if the support call comes in, at 4:30, 5 o'clock on Friday, they're not going to get a response back until Monday. But so I guess it's a 24-hour business day support call response time. And then we already talked a little bit about the system requirements. If people are interested in the system requirements, there is a link when they register so that they can view those system requirements. But we're not asking for any specific beefy hardware. People can take this using any number of different browsers. They do have to have an internet connection. It works far better if they've got a DSL or some sort of a higher speed connection. It will work on dial-up, but it will probably be slow, and it might have a few more glitches. So we encourage people who have dial-up or really, really slow, problematic internet connections to perhaps go to the library or try to take the orientation at a friend's house who might have a higher speed. But it will still work at the lower speeds, and using different browsers should work as well. Okay, some of the common questions, and we've talked about a number of these already. Real common one is did not receive username and password, and for that we really encourage them to check their spam or their junk folder. We also ask that they give it a little bit of time, up to 24 hours, to receive that. If they haven't received it within 24 hours or can't locate it, then they should contact the support using that help utility, because we will be able to get back to them quickly. Or registering with someone else's email address. This is something that comes up occasionally because they're registering maybe with the same agency. Maybe the agency has a central email that everybody uses. For this system, each user needs to have a unique email address. That is one of the fields that is very important in the system. Unique email for each unique person in the system. So that occasionally this happens, and we are able to fix it on the back end, if you will, by adding them into the system. We just need to verify their payment. But that's a question that comes up. You know, if you're going to register, yes, you need your own unique email address. And the question about didn't print certificates and now the 30 days has expired, can already address that particular question. There's a couple of ways you can handle that, and there are some detailed instructions in the procedure manual. The last one I'll talk about is maybe someone calls and says, I've paid twice and I need a refund. Okay, that happens occasionally, and all of those should be referred to the support desk, and those all come to CPS because we will issue those refunds promptly. We have a couple of checks that we do to verify, and we also then want to find out from the user what happened, because if there's something that is not clear in the registration process, early days, we use some of that information to refine the information that we put out around the registration. So if somebody calls and says they've paid twice, please refer them to the support desk, who will work with us here at CPS, and we will take care of that. I know that can be a tense situation. It's not fun when we're talking about people's money. We need to take care of that promptly, which we will do. And we want you in the field to know that if you get those questions, please let them know. We will take care of that as soon as we possibly can. So those are some of the common questions. We're almost done here, and then we'll go back and take a look at other questions that may have come in. So basically, at this point, you have the basic information to get ready to support this system, and we are piloting it, as I mentioned, in 2 offices, and we have entered all of you in as administrators. So as administrators, we have given you the same naming convention that we do with all of the users that come in. So you have been entered into the system with your first name and your last name, no space, and a capital letter for the first letter of your first name, and a capital for the first letter of your last name. And I've got an example there. And everyone's password right now is training 1, just as it is showing up on the screen there. Training 1 is supposed to be easy, capital T, and that is a number 1. So at this point, we would encourage you to go into the system, to pull up your account, change your password if you would like, and to go ahead and go through the training course to familiarize yourself with it. That's just a good way to get used to the system. Go in, feel free to play around with those reports. You may see some strange-looking data in there right now. We've been doing a lot of testing on the system. So Asher is a common name you'll see in there a lot. We do a lot of testing with that name and numbers like the 99999 or sometimes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Don't worry about those types of things in these early stages. What we're really looking for and tracking this month are those bona fide registrations that are coming in. We're watching to make sure that they successfully registered, that they were able to complete the course, and are responding to any questions that they've had. There haven't really been any, so it's been going very, very smoothly. And let's see. So that brings us to Q&A. I did put my email information down there in case you need it. Keep in mind I'm just one person here at CPS. I work very, very closely with the support desk there. Mia and Ken are really my two go-to people there. I work with them all of the time. All of your concerns and questions should probably go in their direction first. That procedural manual, again, is going to be a tremendous resource to you, and we have recorded this webinar, so that will be available to you as well. Now let me see, before we let you go here, about other questions that have come in. Let me see.
Yeah, I just want to, while she's doing that, I want to chime in and let everyone know that in your procedures manual there are step-by-step instructions on towards the back on how to answer some of those questions, such as how to look up a username, how to change a username. There are step-by-step instructions in that. Also, there are step-by-step instructions on what to do if a certificate is lost. And there's also some sample language in there for ways to respond to different inquiries. If you ever get a question that you can't answer, feel free to ask them to email contact support, and that email will go to our special help desk inbox, which is manned mainly by Mia Curtis, who is our OT here in training, and she will respond as quickly as she possibly can to that. And that is it. Melissa, are there any questions?
There are a couple of questions, and okay. I'm not sure I understand this one. It's kind of a question. We wouldn't have to verify their certificates once the applications are submitted, correct? If I'm understanding that correctly, you don't need to verify the certificate, but in that process where you'll be entering in the applications received data, you should be checking that the name of the person and that registration ID match. So that is what is on the certificate. So the name on the application matches the name on the certificate. The name and that name matched in the system has the same registration ID as the certificate. Am I saying that correctly? Oh, question answered. Okay, good. I guess. So anything to add there, Ken?
No, just page 12 and 13 of the procedures manual talk about application received.
Okay, good, good.
So you should always, I just want to make sure, you do always need to verify that the name and the registration ID match if you get a certificate for an online orientation. They look different from your in-person orientations. For that reason, to cue you to come into the system and verify that they are authentic.
Here's a question. Once it goes live statewide, how often will in-person orientations be offered, and when should regional offices start offering the public to register online?
You guys can start changing your the voicemail in your office, stating that starting in July, that the online orientation will be available. I don't know if your program office has reached a decision on how often they're going to offer the adult residential component 1 orientation once the online orientation is live. I do know that for the child care offices, many of them went down to 1 a month, and some of them even for certain orientations went down to 1 a quarter. To try to encourage people to take the online orientation, but I haven't heard anything from your program office or any of the people I'm working with in the adult and senior care program saying what that is going to be reduced to yet. But once that happens, I'm sure some more information on that will be forthcoming from your regional managers or licensing program managers.
Great. Okay, and let's see. I think this is getting close to the end here. Yeah. Last question. How do we contact CPS HR regarding refunds? I have on the screen my email address. You're welcome to send those my way. Also, they should be going through the support desk. So if they come to me, I'm going to be coordinating with the support desk anyway. So you're welcome to send those to me. We are very concerned about refunds. We don't want people to be upset if there's been some sort of a problem with their payment. But I can assure you, if you send that through the support help desk by using under help, sending that information into to the help desk, then that is going to probably be your quickest way. And then, because Mia will do some checking, and then I'll do some checking, and we respond. We always get back within 24 hours on those refunds.
Yeah, I just need to chime in there. Please make sure that you do not we're asking you not to contact Melissa directly after the pilot's over, after the first few months. Please send all refund requests, etc., through the CCL Online Orientation Help Desk email address, which can be reached from the website by going on to that contact support link. And we're doing that just to make sure Melissa doesn't get flooded with calls that we might be able to answer here first.
Well, and there's a fairly large tracking effort underway. So Mia is part of that. Mia Curtis is part of that reconciliation process at the end of the month. At the end of the month, not only do we reconcile all of the registrations, but we also have a reconciliation of the refunds. And the reason we're particularly interested in the refunds, first of all, it's just from a customer service standpoint. But secondly, if we're having a large number of refunds, then there is usually something in the system that we should be looking at changing. Because we want to, the whole goal in this was to make it easier and more convenient for people. So if there's something in the instructions that people are not understanding and is causing a behavior where they're paying twice without realizing it, we want to understand what is driving that, and we want to put in some changes. And I mentioned we've made some significant changes to the directions. Oh gosh, it was some time ago, but from some of the lessons learned in some of the other courses, because we were having a larger than expected number of refunds, and we were able to put in some language that then greatly reduced those. There will always be some. We've found that it's very difficult to predict every single user behavior. People do unexpected things in the system, and there's a wide range of ability in terms of computer sophistication and knowing, how to use the computer and things like that. So it's impossible to, I think, lock it down 100% of the time, but we feel very good about the way it's been working and the data that we've been getting. There are almost 1,000 people that are accessing the learning management system now for the child care program, almost 1,000 people a month. So we've learned a lot. It's kind of nice to be in the position that you are with your program, that we've been able to capture these lessons learned, and we've made some changes and modifications to it to try to make it the best possible experience. But if you could send those to Mia, then again, Mia and I, we talk daily, a lot of emails back and forth as needed. Okay, any other questions? But as Ken said, I do have my contact information there. So if, especially in these first months, we really want to know if there's something going on that we're not expecting. Should we send the individuals to the help desk or Mia? You should send them to the help desk.
Yes.
You use that utility under help, contact support, because I say Mia affectionately because she spends a lot of time on that, but by no means is she the only person who is working on that support desk. And I said a couple times support team, and I really mean that. There are a number of people that are responding to the various inquiries that come in through help and contact support. So that will be the fastest way to get a response. If Mia stepped away, there are other folks who are attending to that bot. Okay, so I do apologize for being over, and I apologize for that initial glitch. I hope that you found this useful. We did record it, so I will be sending that to Ken there at headquarters so that that can be posted and used as part of any additional training if anybody would like that. Is there any other questions before we sign off for today? No? Okay, well, and Ken, thank you so much for your input. I really appreciate that. And again, I'll refer you to that procedures manual which was sent out, which has great detail and screenshots that you can use as we're rolling this out. And please do look for further communications about timing and answering some of those questions about the in-person versus online orientations. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
And thank you to Melissa for this presentation. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact Jodine Green, who's my supervisor, or me. And that's it. Thank you all.